Hey kids, you're listening to the internet's wettest podcast about video games, consoles, and pancakes. The SML Podcast.
What's up, everybody? This is the SML Podcast. I am your host, Joe. Tuesday, we got a party cast going. We've got Pernell here, we've got Chris here, and we've got Aki here. How's everyone doing?
Fan-fucking-tastic.
Well,
Okay.
damn.
Aki's feeling good tonight.
Now I feel weird. Aki can't feel better than me. That just doesn't make sense.
Sorry, Aki, you're throwing off our game. You're gonna have to bring down that energy a
dial
little.
it back, Aki. You gotta dial the enthusiasm down a bit.
Can't do it. Sorry, nope, can't do it. Fuck off.
Gotta get our expectations in check. We have a guest joining us tonight from Turning Wheel. Josiah Colborn is back on the show. Josiah, how are you doing?
Doing good. It's been a long time since I was here last, and a lot has happened, but I'm sure we'll cover some of that later.
Indeed,
I'm sorry we tricked you to be on here again.
No, we didn't trick him. He's on here because he's an awesome gent, and he wants to hang out with people who need to grab more naps in their day.
So Pernell is
I believe
tired.
that.
That's what I'm getting here. Pernell needs a nap.
I'm always sleepy. That's just how life works. You keep busy. You're on the move. Hot diggity dog. So, but I'm here. I'm game, and I'm ready to talk shop. So let's do this.
Well, let's talk shop. Josiah, you were here to talk about the Switch release, the impending Switch release of your game Barony, released on PC a few years back. You came on to talk with us back when the Kickstarter first was going out. It's been a few years. What's going on? What's happened in the meantime?
Yeah, so that was almost 3 years ago. It's a little embarrassing to talk about it that way because it's not like we made a whole dang new game. We just kept building this one. But you know, Barony's pretty big. It's pretty deep. It's pretty complicated. And so I suppose I could forgive ourselves. And for the first 2 years of that, we were all working part-time. And so, we were just sort of nip and tuck trying to get everything done that we could. The Kickstarter money helped pay for our dev kits and a few other contractors to help us get some of the new story art in and stuff. But we literally built all of the game's UI up from basically scratch, which was necessary to get it feeling good on a gamepad while still keeping it feeling good on a mouse and keyboard. We just needed a whole new design. And so that effort just took a really, really long time. It's kept us quite busy.
So it's been 3 years. The big thing is it's now launching on Switch, finally. That was the big thing that the Kickstarter was about at the time, was the Switch version of this. Besides the UI, which you had to completely retool for console, what kind of key differences are there in designing for PC versus the Switch in particular, which is its own wild brand of console handheld?
Yeah. Well, there's a few things that would be, general for all gamepad based gaming. Like there's some fundamental things we just had to rethink. But in terms of the Switch specifically, the first things that come to mind are performance restrictions. And you look at a game like Barony and you're like, oh, I'm sure it's got no problem with performance. It looks, retro. It's going to be fine. But it's pretty deceptive. Unlike a lot of action games and even MMOs, those games are constantly unloading things from around you. Whereas Barony's kind of like an immersive sim, where everything is being simulated all the time. And so if there's a monster across the map who's beating down a door and then getting in a fight with a skeleton on the other side, that's all happening. And the game doesn't stop processing just because the player's not there. And it's cool because it means you can wander into a fight that started before you got there, or you can follow a trail of blood and then find that, a boulder smashed some monster here. And so the world feels really dynamic and the environment tells its own stories, which is really cool. But it also means that just the game's constantly doing stuff. And so, our triangle counts are a little higher than you might think because of the voxel models being pretty detailed. and each one of those is a 6-sided cube with 2 triangles each. Blah blah blah. The long story short is getting the game to perform well on the Switch was not a given, and it may have been a given for another console. The second thing that struck me as a particular headache for the Switch is that it's just like a unique snowflake in terms of its gamepad layout. So you might have seen the memes where like somebody's got 4 controllers and it just says press the X button. And, yeah, exactly. So they all have that in common, is that the X is like, who knows where that is, but the Switch is the only one where the bottom button is not confirm, is not like your default OK button.
Yeah.
It's the right button, which is, and especially because of our hotbar layout, that ended up being like a pretty big concern of ours, is the hotbar not being intuitive because of the scheme we settled on. You know, Barony's a 10-key hotbar game, and allowing the player to access as many items as they can to be resourceful in the moment is really important to the gameplay. And so with Switch's layout being different than all the others, we actually had to do quite a bit of finagling to make sure that it would feel good on the Switch. I would say other than that, it wasn't much different than, I mean, I could go into some stuff about online and, you know, certification, things that are very technical and specific to the platform. But in terms of like the experience of what the player is going to notice, not a whole lot different.
Right. We should probably jump back a little bit. For the people who aren't familiar with Barony, give us the sales pitch. What is this game, and what is so special about bringing it to the Switch?
Well, Barony's a first-person roguelike RPG with co-op, and there's a lot of like little genre words that you could pepper out and describe any game, but I picked those ones in particular because there's a lot of co-op RPGs, and they're often like MMOs, you know, with tick-based combat, or, you know, the camera's pulled way out and all that. But we've seen with Skyrim's popularity over the last 50,000 years that people really do like an immersive game, a first-person game, and just the amount of first-person RPGs that aren't made by Bethsoft it's pretty uncommon. To have them with co-op is pretty rare. The other thing is that, you know, there's plenty of first-person roguelikes out there, or roguelites at least. And if any of your audience isn't familiar with that, that just means basically every time you die, the players go back to the beginning, and the levels are generally randomized so that you're getting a new experience, even though you're starting from the start. It's part of the sort of core design philosophy of why roguelikes are fun and why it doesn't just suck to start over, is because you're still doing something new. It still feels fresh when you die and start over. So while there are first-person roguelites out there, most of them I wouldn't call RPGs. And like they have, you know, maybe like a damage stat and like an armor stat and a mana stat, but you know, they don't have a big list of skills and a lot of complicated ways you can interact with your items. And they may not even have classes where, you know, the character you pick grows in a different fashion than other characters. And those are all things that Barony has. It's like a crunchy first-person RPG, as much as I would say, you know, Skyrim or maybe even Oblivion, because Skyrim doesn't even have stats anymore, you know. So Barony remains an RPG. So it's very unique as an immersive first-person game that is co-op and is an RPG. And on top of that, it's a roguelike, so you've got the replayability that you go in fresh every time with your buddies. And it's not a roguelite because you don't keep your, and some people may disagree on the definitions here, but you don't keep progress from run to run. Like if you win a run, it's because you got good at the game, not because you grinded out enough stats. So over like 50 playthroughs or whatever it is. And I like roguelite games for their own reasons. Like Hades was a blast for me. I could name a bunch of other roguelites I enjoyed. But one thing I don't do with roguelites is I don't replay them. And like once I've gotten to whatever the final challenge is, I just don't really replay them because your character's already maxed out.
Yeah.
And our roguelike with Barony doesn't have that problem. The 50th time you play is in some ways just as fresh as the first.
Pernell, were you about to say something?
I have some thoughts, but I want to wait till he's done doing the pitch.
Well, I spent the whole time talking about what the little RPG titles, or sorry, the game genre titles meant. So maybe that's on me for being long-winded. But
No. You're supposed to be. You're talking about your baby.
that's right, my sweet summer child.
You know what I'm talking about.
That's right.
Yeah, but I gotta say, man, you were like, yeah, this is not so much what I call a roguelite, and while I agree it's not for the typical reason of it not being a roguelite, even though this isn't technically a review, this is just me talking about the limited time I've had with it so far. I am going to say it's also not a roguelite because this damn game is meaty from the scope of what I'd consider to be even a rogue game to be, like a not even roguelike. It's more roguelike than roguelite because it's a bear. Like, I'm going to tell you just right off the bat, if you got any tips on getting the ball rolling, aside from the obvious of rock that tutorial till you can't rock it no more, I am all ears. Because holy cow, like, I started playing it. I can't recall the last time I played a game and went into a dungeon, and I'm not even Dark Souls, by the way, where I went into a dungeon and got killed by the first thing I fought. It's just, I was like, oh yeah, I got this. No, you don't. You're dead. Might have been my own fault for picking a ninja as my first character class, but yeah, it was brutal. So I want to just ask if you got these general ideas, like this is what you should be doing to get started.
I get
primarily
that
with
impulse.
combat.
Yeah. So I think I don't know of any roguelike games that have and I'm talking like the originals like NetHack and even ADOM and Stone Soup and stuff. I can't think of any of those games that actually have a tutorial, and for ages Barony didn't either. And I think the reason for that is just because it's like way too much. Yeah, it's like way too much to explain what's going on. But like, I tried to anyway. Like, if we could fit it all in there, I thought. But we branded it as the Hall of Trials rather than just a tutorial, because the idea was like, if you're struggling with a certain mechanic and you don't want to wait till you get to dungeon floor 12 to try that again, I wanted you to have an opportunity to go somewhere where you could try it out and master it, and then come back feeling better prepared next time. And so as far as like the tutorial experience goes, I would recommend definitely doing the first tutorial, because it introduces melee combat, which is, I would say, is the meat and potatoes of the game. Like, every character class can fall back on some melee if they want to. Like, you don't have to with a lot of the classes, but if you want to, like, it's generally a good idea, instead of wasting your mana to take down one hit point of an enemy, to go ahead and just finish them off with your staff, even if you're a wizard, right? So for that reason, the first tutorial introduces the basics of navigating the menus, but it also introduces melee combat and the block attack pattern. So if you're gonna,
I definitely picked up on that. Yeah, and that was a trip. But like, what I'll say is, you're not wrong about that. It definitely introduces it. I put that bad boy to good use. But there's something to be said about when I got into the game proper. I was like, okay, well, I'm fighting this guy. I think I got the rhythm down for blocking,
okay.
But the thing that was interesting about the tutorial, in compared to like my first run, and of course I know this is the meant to how the game is designed, so I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's just learning the game. Is the fact that so in the tutorial, it's like, okay, you have a shield, you're fighting a rat, and eventually a skeleton. Block, and then balance out the timing of your strikes. Then you go to the main game. I think I played as a ninja who didn't have a shield at first, but then I switched to a cleric because I'm a sucker for healing and stuff like that. And then, of course, as you can probably guess, the armor class of a cleric isn't very high. So I was like, okay, I got a shield. I'm going to try to block and then hit with my mace. Shield was like, no, bro, you can't take that hit. What do you think this is? You're a cleric. So I was like, whoops. So in that regard, I'm guessing, would it be safe to say like maybe something like a walking backwards while swinging is a thing you'd have to do, or something like that?
No, like that's the answer for a lot of first-person combat games with melee, where like you can get more hits in if you backpedal while attacking, and maybe on occasion you can get another strike or two out of it in Barony, especially if you're going around a corner. But the player character in Barony walks slower sideways and backwards than they do forwards.
Yes,
and so you're generally not going to outpace a monster by backpedaling. So it's possible. There's a few things that could happen, and I hate that I'm diving into some details now that might be what happened. Is like those skeletons in the early game should be pretty blockable with the cleric's shield. But something you need to know about axes, if you see your skeleton has an axe, is that axes have 1 armor penetration. So
that's probably what happened.
Yeah, and so if you take 4 hits I think a cleric has 30 health. You're only down to 26. You'll regen that pretty fast. If you're, if you do trade 4 hits with a skeleton, you block every axe strike, you'll walk away in pretty good shape. A ninja with a torch to block is not going to have that luxury. He's going to want to rely on his bear traps and his throwing knives to, keep the enemy at bay. So, but it's a learning experience, and I'd say like that's part of. Like, roguelikes are at odds with a lot of game design wisdom in some way, because, like, if once you stop kind of learning the ins and outs, like all of the tiny little things you can take advantage of in the game in a roguelike, there's, like, not much else. Like, that's, like, the meat of the game is learning it all and, like, learning how to exploit everything to your advantage. And so, roguelike fans, they like that process. And, the tutorial spoils it to some extent. I'm spoiling some of it to some extent right now. But, the early game can be pretty difficult as you're learning those early lessons.
Now, what I will say, and like for the record, I'm going to point out, it's kind of a spoiler, but I do think your game is pretty cool. It's one of those games where I was like, oh man, I was not expecting to get kind of caught up in this game like I did. But what's interesting is what changes the game for me on this compared to, because like for the record, like I play games like Sheer and the Wanderer, like I'm a sucker for that level, which is like, that's like the pure rogue like in that sense too. Like there's no strengthening your character with the exception of like maybe like jarred items taking them back to your base or whatever. But with that, I realized that a big difference between the two games, I feel like in this game, especially on a Minotaur floor, which again, I'll talk more about that next week, but you feel like you're always on the move. Like you don't get to sit. Like if I was playing Sheeran, right, and I'm like, I got to deal with my inventory here. You figure out what this unidentified item is, or whoa, I got a lot of details on this cursed item. I better read it to make sure it's something I want to use. It's like, okay, I'll just do that. For some reason, I feel like in this game, well, just not for some reason, there's a reason. In this game, I feel like I always have to be on the move. Like there's no time to stop and smell the roses. By that, I mean my inventory. So, and one of the tutorials even express it. They say, you don't have time sometimes. You just got to play it on the fly. And I was like, you're right about that. Because I just picked up an item, didn't read it, just ate it. It was like, oh, that's what it's doing.
Yeah.
It just barked it. So it's like, it's definitely what I think so far is like, it's quite the learning curve compared to what I'm used to. But I do think there's some love here, and there is a lot going on. Like there's a lot of stuff. Between the combinations of the races and the character classes, and then you got just unlockable ones, and then every time you play, the starting floor is the same. Of course, start out ganking 8 torches, but but then after that, you're like, well, time to figure out what the heck's going on over here.
Right.
So,
Chris, what is your opening time with the game been like?
I gave up on the tutorial because I kept getting killed by the skeleton at the end of the first one. I died to it like 10 times in a row, and I was like, I'm just gonna play the game. And then I did, and I actually did much better that way.
Really?
So it's the first game that I've ever played where the tutorial is too hard.
Yeah, you will die in the tutorial. That's fact.
Were you playing on the Switch?
Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, I'm playing on the Switch. But yeah, like apart from that, really enjoying it. I'm actually playing it right now. I'm trying the survivalist class.
The Wanderer, I'm guessing.
The Wanderer, yeah, that's it. I thought it was. I
forgot
the name already.
That was close enough. I knew what you were talking about.
I also tried out a ninja pretty early on and was like, I gotta get a little better before I can do this one.
Yeah,
gotta get good for ninja time.
Actually, I turned out to be pretty good at the wizard.
That explains it. Because Gary asked, how did you do better in the game than the tutorial? And that covers it. So I think because the wizard starts with some projectables, right?
I just did different things. Well, I don't like to use shields and melee things, whatever. I did a Skyrim run once where I had to use a shield a lot, and I didn't like it.
Yeah. Well, I think the comments from both of you and what you had a hard time with illustrates that like playstyle preference is something that's really important, and that's one of the reasons why we have so many stinking classes. Like we have 10 starting classes, and even though we have an open class system where if you get enough intelligence and magic skill, like any class can learn any spell, and any character can wear any kind of armor, and it's just your strength that determines how much it slows you down, and anybody can get their strength up. Like, despite that, the starting class selection really does make a lot of determinations about your core initial competencies. And, you know, whether or not you choose to branch off from your class's strong suit is totally up to you. But I've definitely seen some people like not like the block attack pattern isn't as intuitive. And like one guy was like kind of raging out on the forum the other day. He was trying like, I don't want to have to be some like like Dark Souls player or like Halo 360 no scoper to try to block on time. And like other people are like, what are you talking about? Like the block pattern's the easiest thing in the world. And so you see a lot of diversity especially on our Discord. People will come by and be like, what's a good class for beginners? And like 4 people simultaneously will be like, monk, wizard, ninja. Like they'll just like have different answers.
Monk was pretty good. Yeah, I liked Monk.
There was no predefined. There was no agreed upon easiest class to start with, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, and there's like, if you took a vote, I think that like people who've gotten good with all the classes might have a similar opinion, but in terms of like people who've put less than 20 hours into the game, I think there'd be a lot of diversity in the perspective.
I do have to say one thing that I liked for sure. Obviously, this is early in the game, but just something that happened where I was like, yeah, this game's got some flavor. Is I was running around, doing typical roguey things, and I came across a water fountain, and I was like, oh, I'll get a drink of water here and see what happens. And I got a drink. It said, you've been healed. And the next time I was like, oh, the water's scalding. I was like, well, crap, it hurts. Now I can't drink it anymore. So I kind of assumed that was the behavior with water fountains. Like, you get some water, eventually it's going to go bad. Like, okay, whatever. Went to another water fountain later, took a drink from it, said a succubus appeared. I was like, a what? Succubus came after me. I tried to kill it. Of course, I failed. And when I died, the message said, you tried to sleep with the succubus and you failed.
Yep.
And then the death message was like, you both slept together peacefully or something like that because you were dead. I was like, this is hilarious, and I am intrigued to play more. Yeah, I was very much happy with that outcome.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was going to say, we got to ask a question that's been coming up a few times in chat. We're talking about the Switch version of this game. Are there any plans for other versions of the game? I know a good number of people in chat are Xbox owners. I'm an Xbox fan personally. I'd love to play it on Xbox. PlayStation fans are out there. Is there any shot of seeing this on more platforms?
So, the open-ended question, is there any shot? I would say there's a chance. It really depends on how we sell on the Switch. Because every time we add another platform, especially because we're just a 3-person team, like every time we make a new patch, that's a new store we have to update. Anytime we got a news post, we got to post it to their like walled garden where they distribute their news about our game. And so like at some point, if it doesn't return on investment, it's just like it's very difficult to justify continuing to add platforms. But that said, the sort of the upshot to this is that like all the work we've done in the last 3 years, the vast majority of it was not specific to the Switch platform. It was specific to redesigning the game to be a great experience, not just functional on a controller, but a great experience on a controller, and redoing all the UI for that. And that's all going to cross over to whatever other platform. And so if we get something that's even close to comparable with our Steam performance on the Switch, it'd be a pretty big incentive for us to pick up another platform like PlayStation or Xbox. If only because we're looking to we have some good amount of support and new content we want to keep adding to Barony. But we're even though we've been working on this game for like 10 years total, if you go back to the very beginning of it, we got future projects we want to do, and we're not going to leave money on the table. And so if we can find some more platforms to put the game on and make some more money so we can grow our team and make, bigger games that are like Barony, then we would not miss the opportunity. And, some folks might be like, well, you should have done Xbox, or you should have done PlayStation instead. And I'm going to go back to something that I think was mentioned earlier, which was like, why the Switch in particular did we pick the Switch? Really, because it's one of the most unique selling points about this game, especially compared to something like the Elder Scrolls, is that it's got co-op. And Switch has not only does it have a lot more focus on split screen, like same system play, which Barony does support now. Split screen is one of the things we've added to the game, 4-player split screen.
Very cool.
Yeah, and by the way, if you ever played like Diablo 3 on split screen or whatever, like you may remember that stinking game, every time you want to go to your inventory, your buddy just has to wait. Like you can only do one inventory at a time. Like just might as well go get a beer, like, because you're not playing until he's done with his inventory. We didn't want that in Barony. We wanted everyone to be able to access all the menus all the time. And even if they're only this big, like all the menus still work and they still look pretty good. So that's just to say that the same console multiplayer, split screen multiplayer was really important to us. And the Switch is really the only console that seems to be caring about that being an important part of their platform, same console multiplayer. But obviously the Switch also has wireless play. So you take it to lunch with your homies and like on your work break, you can literally do a dungeon with your buddy. Like you just can't do that on the Xbox or the PlayStation. And so, and of course they all support online play. Say what you want about Nintendo's online systems, but you can do it on Barony. And we've got crossplay supported. And so like there wasn't anything about the Switch as a multiplayer platform that had real downsides, when what we're trying to do is double down on one of our unique selling points. This is really the only way you can go co-op dungeon crawling like anywhere in first person.
Yeah, it's really cool seeing something split screen 4-player on the Switch. How well does that work on handheld mode? Like, can you get 4 people on one Switch huddled around with 4 Joy-Con just rocking out in one dungeon? Is that technically doable?
I haven't. I know early on we talked about that making split screen inaccessible unless you were docked, but I think we went ahead and let you do it anyway. I think we let you do it. I'll have to check. I'm sorry if I'm wrong about that. My business partners may be like, no, you're wrong about that. But I think we never disabled it. I think it will work. But yeah, it'll be tight. I wouldn't recommend that as an experience. That's be aggressively small.
I think the Minotaur will spend his time laughing at you rather than kill you if you attempted that.
Yeah. I'm picturing that that image of Ken Jeong like from Community looking at that tiny piece of paper. Yeah, that's what it would be like to play Barony in split screen in desktop mode or whatever they call it.
To recall another meme, what is this? A roguelike for ants?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, but I will say I do believe even at this early stage in it, though obviously you've already gotten this affirmation from many other people long before our old asses did. You got a wonderful product on your hands here. Like this is, I will say, and Joe will attest, I have a bad habit of this, which is why I always acknowledge it when I always say this for a reason on the show, because a lot of people have a habit of hitting the eShop and they just kind of do that quick flick through. And they're just like, oh, this doesn't stick out to me. And I will say, this is one of those games where I feel like the execution does everything for it. It's like, wow, I want more of this game. And this is a game that will spread by word of mouth. Like, it's a type of game where seeing it in action, being able to use it, made me realize just exactly what the value of it was. Like, what's so special about it, why I want to play more of it, and why I would recommend it to other people. Christ, I ain't even doing a review yet. But it's just one of those games where I'm glad I was able to get a chance to try it, because through that I realized, yes, this game has some chops to it. And I am looking forward to doing more with it, preferably dying less, but doing more with it.
Yeah, no promises.
Okay, you're saying I can't get good?
No, well, I mean, some things, I have a lot of hours in the game, and, I'll still fail to check my ceilings properly, and I'll come out from a low ceiling in the swamps and not look up and get just like straight smashed by a boulder and like lose a character that's going real good. It's like I know what to do to avoid that problem, but like I get confident because my character's doing well, and I just forget that I don't quite have the HP yet to survive getting hit by a boulder. But if those there's a few things that are really difficult for the learning curve for people, but that's why we've included some options too. So in the game flags option in the lobby, you can turn off the Minotaur, you can turn off hunger, and you can turn off friendly fire, although I wouldn't recommend it because that also applies to NPCs, and sometimes you want to kill friendly NPCs. Yeah, But the Minotaur and Hunger...
That's some evil speak there. NPC killer.
Yeah. I mean, it's just XP waiting. It's waiting there. What are you going to do?
Look at all those items in the shop, and I don't have money.
Oh, well, good luck attacking the shopkeeper. We'll see how that goes.
Strong shopkeepers?
The shopkeeper, yeah, in typical roguelike fashion, the shopkeepers are brutally strong. Yeah, really good.
Nice.
I'm also going to assume that they will chase you to the ends of the earth. Why do I not know this? Because I'm too much of a chicken, because I've played too much Spelunky to know how bad that could be. So, nope.
Yeah, Spelunky's shopkeepers are a little better at following through on their grudge than ours. Although we might address that in a future update. We'll see.
Oh, Christ. Like a deal with the Minotaur. Like, hey, look here, bro. You scratch my back, I scratch yours.
Yeah.
No,
I will ask one more question for like a general, like, so here's a newbie tip or whatever sort of thing. And you might go, well, the answer is to literally get good. But what is your suggestion for folks who might suffer from like information overload? And what I mean by that is, heck, even some characters, when you start out, they start with like 8 different things. And then, of course, you got more things coming at a constant pace, and they all have their own variations of text associated with them. And, of course, eventually you're like, oh, I know what I need to look out for. I know what I care about. The rest is just fluff. But early on, it could be like, man, what is the important detail here that I need to be like, just get it done and move on? Do I want to wear this? I want to dump it? What? Do you have any general tips on like, until you get really good at like discerning things, maybe focus on getting this kind of items when you run around, stuff like that. Get the cheese or whatever.
Yeah, that's a good question. And it's definitely one of those things that like the better you get at the game, the more experience you have with what all the items do, the less that inventory management becomes an issue. Because, you know, this isn't a Diablo clone or something where just like every single item you pick up because you're going to sell it. Like that's not the kind of game Barony is. Like
you literally get slowed down by having more stuff. So
right. Yeah. And so it's really against your best interest to collect freaking everything, but that also assumes that you know what you want. And, you know, it can be helpful to sort of refer to what your class already has. Like if you start with spell books, it's a good clue. Maybe you want to go ahead and pick up all the spell books. Or if you don't have any armor, maybe go ahead and pick up the armor that you find. Or if you're a warrior and you don't start with spell books, maybe you can ignore them for a while. Or if you start with some good armor, it's probably the case that what the skeleton drops is not going to be as good as what you have. So those are things that you can start to learn. But the other thing I would say is that I think hunger off, like I don't think hunger off is a way to get an advantage in the game, because when you turn off hunger, you lose passive regeneration. Food heals you instead of feeding you, and then now you don't regen passively. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's one of the key components of like roguelikes in general is like food heals, but also drains. So it's a double-edged sword. So yeah, I wouldn't turn hunger off if I could help it. Just also know sometimes you gotta eat that rotten meat.
Yeah. So with hunger off, because you don't have that ticking time bomb in the background, like you're going to starve, you can afford to take some time and analyze the stats of everything you pick up until you're really comfortable with them. And then you can like, you know, now that you know all that, you don't need all that time anymore, and you can afford to turn hunger back on. So the other thing too is that if you buy our first DLC, you can play as a skeleton race, and they just don't need food, but they regen much more slowly than other characters do. So or the monk starts with this ring of slow digestion. And so these are all ways you can play to help you take your time and learn. But I mean, one thing's for sure though, is that like, if you're not going to use something, this is a tip I saw from one of our Discord members. They said, if you're not going to use something in the next 5 minutes, throw it away. Like it's going to bog you down.
Interesting.
So if you can identify it and look at its stats and analyze if it's going to be better than for you and you're going to use it soon, then keep it. But if not, just chuck it. Your character class is pretty well equipped from the start in most cases.
I have that hoarder mentality in games where if I see it, I want to collect it and hold it. It's like in Final Fantasy when I have the final boss fight and I have 72 mega elixirs because I haven't used any of them the whole friggin' game.
And you probably don't use any for that fight either.
I know, right? Because you might have another boss fight after that. You don't know.
I usually keep things in sections of tins, and if I have anything above that, I just sell it. Then I just keep it at tins the whole time.
That's something a smart person does. I'm a hoarder. I got to keep all of those mega elixirs.
Well,
the
for
same way.
me,
That's the
in
reason why
most
it's
of
a
these
meme.
games, I end up with like the max amount of items, so I have to cut it down a lot constantly because I don't use any items at all in any video game unless there's an achievement for it or something. I won't use them.
Speaking
Yeah,
of cool things, I got a question dating back to the Kickstarter. I know you had some cool leather switch cases made for the Kickstarter. How did those turn out? Are those really nice? Did the backers enjoy them? Oh, that is sweet.
Yeah, I think they're quite nice. So this is sort of like a pen and ink paint over that I did of our key art, our like promotional art, cover art, you could say. And so I just made it so that it's something that would look good on a leather burn. And our friends at Spring Hill Studios, run by Tobias McCurry, there's their logo, Spring Hill. He's just good with making a bunch of leather goods and other sort of cosplay goods. That's sort of his field. You can see it's engraved with my name too. They turned out real nice. I keep my because I keep my regular retail Switch in my in its dock by my TV. This is my dev kit that I keep in my leather one.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, they're pretty cool. Yeah.
How many were made? Did you get rid of all of them in the Kickstarter? Are there any left? Can people buy them?
Yeah, that's a fair question. So like I haven't talked with Tobias about that opportunity, although we're good friends. It'd be easy for me to talk to him about it. But he's the kind of guy that I don't know. He's just down for an adventure. Like if suddenly one day I was just like, we need 100 Switch cases, people are willing to pay for them. He'd be like, let's do it. When do they want them? Like I'm guessing that's how he would react. So,
well, you do realize the reason why all of this was asked was because Joe very specifically
because I couldn't afford one during the Kickstarter. But
oh no,
I mean, don't we all want one? I mean, shoot. I like the
those
game.
are very nice looking.
So,
hold on, I'll take a note here. I'm gonna bring up my notepad, and I'm gonna make a note to myself to ask Tobias about this because. Yeah, why not?
We do have Switch cases.
Yeah.
How many were made for the backers? Did all the backers did they sell out? Did that tier go all the way?
Well, no, the total possible quantity did not sell out, and that was mostly just to keep Tobias's workload manageable and so he wouldn't be doing that for the rest of his life.
Fair.
But no, we didn't get close to the limit on that one. I think that was maybe one of our lower selling tiers, which is fine. It was like you said, a lot of people couldn't afford it at the time. It's expensive. But yeah, everybody got their Switch cases like pretty rapido. Like I think it was that Christmas or something that they got sent.
Cool.
So people have had these Switch cases for like 2 years and no game on their Switch. Like we've been desperate to get it out because we don't like the irony of that you have a Switch case for a game that doesn't exist.
Well, you're a few days away. How does it feel?
It's a little bit surreal because it's gone on so long. It's just like, is it really going to be out there in the wild? Like after all this time, and not just on the Switch either, because we're calling this update the Quality of Death update on Steam, and so like everybody like it's crazy to go to Twitch and watch people playing Barony, and they're still playing on the old version of the game. And it's like, we haven't seen that version of the game in 2 years. Like, it's alien to us at this point, and we can hardly believe people tolerate it, like we've moved beyond it. So I'm really hopeful that the response will be explosive on not just the Switch, but on Steam as well, that people will be like, they'll be like, wait a second, I didn't even know an update was coming. And suddenly wow, look what the game has become. So I'm hopeful about it. There's some content too, like I mentioned a lot of the UI work and all that, like the vast majority of that in split screen, vast majority of that work was programmer work. And of the three of us, I'm not a programmer. Of the three of us who are on the team, I'm not a programmer. So, I had plenty to do when it came to UI layout design and, gamepad controls and like a whole host of things I had to do for sure. But like there was plenty of time where the design was good to go, the art was good to go, and we just needed code to do their thing. And so I spent that time to create, was it like 200 more levels for the mines, 200 more levels for the swamps, 200 more levels for hell, for the labyrinths, make a bunch of new art for the labyrinths. So
holy hell.
Yeah. So more than half of the game's levels have now been dramatically overhauled because that's, I think it took me about a month to do each of those tile set overhauls, and I was just like, how can I make hell like so cool and so memorable compared to what it was? And so people who've been playing the game for the last like 3 years who have no idea that an update's coming, they're gonna get in it and be like, I hope they're blown away. Like, I'm really excited. Like, it's just when you're making an entertainment product like this, you really don't know how to feel about it until you see other people play it. And so I'm just amped to see people get their hands on it. I'm so excited about that.
Have you been playing with people online at all?
Not really, because we still got a lot of work to do, and we're still, trying to put in any last minute fix or update that we can to make sure that like the launch is really strong. My personal machines are always set to the latest dev versions because I'm always testing. So no, on launch day, I do have a feeling I'll be going and doing pickup groups. Last time we had a big update, I definitely went and joined random lobbies, or I hosted a lobby and let people join. And so I played with randos, and that's a fun thing to do as a dev, is just play with some rando. They don't even know you're a dev, and you just like sort of watching what they do. Just like, oh, what's he gonna do? You're there to help, but I'm like mostly there to observe.
Have you caught anyone like shit talking the game while you were playing?
No, not really.
Well, if people aren't cursing the roguelike, it's not a good roguelike.
No, the most common thing that happens is that like we'll be doing better than they expect because they didn't expect to be paired with somebody who's really good at the game. And so they're like, I can't, I'm sorry, I gotta go. I wasn't expecting to be playing this for 2 hours. Like, I got
they were touching that quick run instead of like, wait, I'm actually beat the game tonight. What's going on?
That's right.
Like, so there are some people who got an easy mode sitting in the queue with you. It's just like, I gotta go to bed.
Yeah, I should name my character Easy Mode. That's a good idea.
Do it. Oh, that would be great.
I'm adding that to my notes list. It's going in the random names list.
So I love interesting and weird names in games, especially when they're like just part of a list or randomly generated. And so I was scrolling through. I didn't name any of my characters, so I just would let it randomly pick. And then at one point, it came up with Chris the Magnificent, and so I was like, "All right." I know it wasn't like doing a trick of like using the name I have on my Switch, because my name on the Switch has an exclamation point on it. So well done.
That's interesting. Yeah, I guess we guessed properly from you. Well, the how the sausage was made on that one was that when we first made shortly after we did the Cursed Edition in 2016, I think it was, that's when I joined the team and we overhauled all the art in the game. I added a bunch of names to the random name list, and I went ahead and added a tribute name for every member of the team, every contributing member of the team at that time.
Oh, nice.
And Chris is our composer and sound designer. So, but you're welcome to claim that for yourself. You can be Chris. You're already Chris the Magnificent in my eyes, anyway.
Aw, well, come on. Yeah. So my thing is that part of my streaming career has been. So I got really good at Skyrim. So what I do is I play through the game on legendary difficulty with extra restrictions I come up with myself, and then beat the game. And part of it is that I like to come up with really stupid names for my characters. My 100% character, my completionist, was a girl called Tilda Dunkaroos.
That's a good name.
Yeah,
Tilda Dunkaroos. It sounds delicious, oddly.
Right?
I have some Dunkaroos in the kitchen.
Yeah.
I'm sad though; they're not the good. Like, I want the ones with like the vanilla cookies with the chocolate sauce.
I've been seeing those in gas stations around.
I can't find it with the chocolate sauce. It's always with like the confetti sauce. I don't want that.
No, we don't want confetti.
What the
sauce.
fudge?
Dunkaroo.
You don't know what Dunkaroos are? Okay, child, listen.
I've never heard of them.
That shocked me so much that I bit my tongue. How do you not want confetti? The confetti's the best
because I want
kind.
the fudge. I want the fudge, Pernell. But the more important thing is that Aki doesn't know what Dunkaroos are.
I mean, guess you also know what freaking pizzerias are, do you? Nope.
I know what a pizzeria is. A place where
the chip.
Oh no!
You horrible person!
God, you child! Oh, you youngin!
Oh my God! Keebler pizzerias were fucking amazing. They were so good.
That's how I know that just because you get a job in marketing doesn't mean you know what the hell you're talking about, because that thing should have stuck around forever.
Oh, man. But yeah, Dunkaroos are basically little cookies with a dippable cream.
Basically like a cake frosting. I think they're actually made by Betty Crocker.
I think so. So it's
Duncan Hines or whoever.
Dunkable cookies with cream. And back in the day, they had a kangaroo mascot, and they would have like kangaroo-shaped cookies, and fudge cream was always the best cream. Pernell's out of his fucking mind for saying confetti's better than fudge.
And proud of it, because I know what I'm talking about. Lunacy is in, baby.
All right, Josiah,
you're witnessing the beginning of the end confetti? Of the SML podcast over here. Where there have been, a line has been drawn.
I have a feeling from that sigh, it's gonna be said like vanilla or something.
Well, the real sigh is I was the poor kid at the lunch table who watched other kids eat Dunkaroos and was jealous.
At least you knew what they were, so you have one up on me at least.
Yeah. Well, but the one that I've had is the chocolate one, and I was amazed. My little mind was blown.
Yeah.
So yeah,
they're incredible.
I have to pick fudge by default.
Yeah,
because it's the one I've actually had gotten a chance to eat.
And I can't find that one anywhere. It's always the confetti sauce or like chocolate cookies with chocolate sauce, which is good. But I like the either graham or vanilla cookies with chocolate. It's that balance. Chocolate and chocolate could be too much chocolate.
No such thing.
Well, now that I'm a grown man, I'm gonna go out and buy me some Dunkaroos. I can do what I want with my money.
I'm glad I'm glad
spend your money on deliciousness.
That's right.
I'll make sure Skyrim names can inspire people.
Dunkaroos, baby.
That's right. I bought a lifetime supply of Dunkaroos.
I also wanted to shout out the I think I don't remember which description page it was I read for Barony. It's Barony, but I keep wanting to say Barony.
That's okay. We say that
like that's a bunch of Barony. But anyways, I like that one of the descriptions I read shouted out Ultima Underworld and Daggerfall.
Yeah,
because those were two of the biggest dungeon crawlers for me in the 90s.
Yeah,
and I'd beaten both of them.
Nice. I just beat Daggerfall a year and a half ago. Like I played it when it came out, and I was obsessed with it. But like it seemed impossible to beat. But a year and a half ago, I got a hold of Daggerfall Unity, and I was just like, I'm beating this. And boy, what a game to beat.
I played it all throughout the late 90s and stuff, and basically until Morrowind came out on the Xbox, and I bought an Xbox just for Morrowind.
Oh wow.
And yeah, I only just beat it like 3 years ago or so, but I did beat the original version. I didn't do the Unity thing.
Yeah,
I just lucked out, and the game didn't permanently soft lock because that's what kept happening to me in the 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah, because computer games, Bethesda.
It had its problems for sure. Well, definitely those games are a huge inspiration for Barony. Like some of the art, I guess, but definitely like the first-person gridless dungeon crawling, which at that time, as you may know, like a grid-based dungeon crawler was pretty,
wizardry.
That had been done to death. Wizardry and Dungeon Master and Eye of the Beholder, that was sort of like what most people knew first-person RPGs for. But Underworld and Daggerfall, and Arena before that.
Arena a little bit different, I suppose, but I beaten that one too, and that one was really good. And I noticed, from Daggerfall, for instance, like the game contains books that you can read, which is, lore via book is very Daggerfall. And then Ultima Underworld of course has the hunger meter as well as the life and everything, so that was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I could see the influences there.
Yeah. Speaking of books, one of the little projects I took on over the last 3 years was I spent a good weekend or maybe a little more going through all of our lore books in the game and updating them a little bit.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, one of the things that I was not really happy with the lore books is that, and they were written mostly by somebody who's not really with the team anymore. And not to denigrate their work, they did a fine job. Some of the books that people know from the game the most were not written by me. But I went through and I made sure to add either something that is highly relevant to the lore of the story that the player is playing through, or something that's an actual like gameplay tidbit, like something that gives you a clue about how to play a little differently in every single lore book. And just because to me, when I'm going through those lore books, one of the things I loved about Morrowind's lore books especially is that there was always something in those books that tied into like one of your skills. Like the skill books, you'd read them, and it had something very literally to do with the skills that you use as a player.
Yeah.
So
I like the Skyrim ones where you read the expensive one, get the skill, and then toss it away.
Yeah.
It was pretty good.
Yeah, I love those books in Skyrim. Wasn't there some kind of glitch that you could do you could like infinitely read the books in Skyrim?
Yes.
There was
that was fixed with a patch, I think.
Yeah, and it was specifically a particular book that you could get as part of a quest.
The best one. The best book, yeah.
Yash.
Oh, that was a little broken.
That's the one build I never finished. Was my or never implemented. Was I tried it off stream and never got far enough to attempt it on stream, and that's that I wanted to collect and read all the books in Skyrim.
Jeez.
Yeah,
I tried to do that
ones.
Both in Morrowind and Oblivion.
Yeah, I ended up not doing it.
Aki, we got to get you to try Barony. You need a Switch.
I'm not good at roguelikes, yo. I'm like,
it's on Steam.
I might get partway through the tutorial and then I'll never be able to beat it. Like, I may like Souls-like games, but I'm bad at them, and I'm even worse at roguelites because they completely wipe your progress, and I'm too bad at that.
Oh, Aki, what are we gonna
get her good at roguelikes?
That's not gonna happen.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's gonna happen.
I play roguelikes a lot, but I rarely beat them. I beat Toe Jam and Earl the other day, though.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
nice.
It's one of my favorites. It's a little bit of a...
that game gets rough towards the back half, though. Whew.
Yeah. I did it in random mode, though, and like the last couple of levels, they were super merciful, so I was like, oh, I think I can actually do this. And sure enough, I had beaten it on fixed mode just because I had played it so much, and I was like, okay, well, I can beat it on fixed mode. I know that. But let's try random mode now, and that's where I beat it this last time. Very fun.
With Barony, because of the co-op, you can... it can be a little bit more forgiving if you're bad at other roguelikes. Like my daughter she likes to play with me, and she's 15 years old, and she's not super skilled at the game, but she knows how to block. She knows how to use her potions, how to stay alive. And so I tend to play the healer and back her up. And even if she dies, as long as somebody survives to the next level, you can bring them back to life. So it might be hard to beat the game like that, but you could experience a lot of it if you're interested.
So co-op is the way.
Yeah, that would be the thing for me. I would have to do it co-op for sure.
Yeah, now Aki just needs a Switch or a better PC.
If you have to have patient friends too. Like some of the dudes in our community are a little aggressive. They got to play their way. And they want to, like, if you're taking too long, they get mad at you and stuff. It's just like,
if they want to just run forward and kill everything for me, I have no problem with this whatsoever. I don't mind being carried like the little bitch I am. I am good with this.
All right. Well, there might be a good fit out there.
There you go. Oh, man.
The important part is that you share in the victory.
Indeed. I know we've been chatting for a while. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about that we didn't bring up?
Well, it's a good question. I mean, first, I just want to thank everybody if anybody's watching, and I know you supported us in our Kickstarter. I remember sending out your key specifically, but just the amount of patience that everyone's had, like the only person that's given us a hard time about how long it's taken has been some random dude on YouTube in the YouTube comments. Like, no one else gives us any problems at all, and so I'm just really grateful.
It's like the least important person in the universe. Somebody who makes YouTube comments.
Right. Yeah, negative ones at that.
Right. That's specifically negative ones, yeah.
Yeah.
I have a ton of patience when it comes to games because I have some friends working on a game that they announced on like our second show, and they're still working on it.
You mean as in literally like SML episode 2?
Yes.
Jesus Christ.
What
Yes.
the hell kind of game is this going to be?
It is.
That was a long motherfucker.
It's the game Pixel Noir from Sword Tech Games. They've been working on
Sounds
it for
familiar.
a while. It's Kunal and Len, their company.
Was there like a preview of that at some point on this? Because I feel like we've talked about that
there's
game.
a Steam beta. They've had it in early access for a while, but apparently like the Switch version is getting close to either this year or early next year. Hopefully it's around the corner, but I know game development is not a quick process.
Yeah, well, good for
No,
them.
it's
So that's
awesome.
why I have patience when it comes to games.
Pixel Noir, baby. I'll be there for it.
But yeah, Josiah, it's been awesome having you back on the show. Whenever you're ready to talk about the Xbox version, clearly just hit us up and give us the scoop on that one.
DLC 2.
Yeah, they have two DLCs out and a third one on the way, right?
Yeah, that's right. So because we're a small team, there's a few people that have been like, oh, when you launch on the Switch, you're going to have the DLC 3 done, right? I'm like, no, not a chance. Like, three of us. There's three of us. What are we doing? How can we make a DLC while we're doing something else? So no, we're gonna launch the game. We're probably gonna have maybe a year's worth of free updates to the game based on our Switch goals. Sorry, not our Switch goals, but our Kickstarter goals that go beyond the DLC. And then we'll probably cap all that off with DLC 3. So it's gonna be a big year for Barony. We're trying to do a quarterly release schedule. This is the first time where the whole team's been working full time, and so we expect to pump out some good stuff pretty rapidly. So yeah, if you play Barony and like what you see, and you drop it for a couple months, come back and see what's new. There will probably be something new. I mean, we're gonna. I guess I'll spoil a little something that we're planning. Like, we're gonna integrate some of our official mods, the holiday mods in particular, into the Switch version, because Switch players can't normally play any mods. So yeah, we want to keep the game fresh and relevant through the seasons.
Very
so get
cool.
that Halloween mod. Will probably be our first update in time for Halloween to hit.
Nice.
It's very
As a
awesome.
person playing it on the Switch, I appreciate that.
Very welcome. We see you.
Again, where is the game? How much is it? Where can people keep up to date with you and what you're doing? Give us all the info.
So you can follow our Twitter. I believe it's turning_wheel on Twitter. We do most of our most frequent news updates on Steam. You can also join our Discord. I should probably link my Discord, eh? Is that something I should do?
Give us a link. We could throw it in the show notes.
Okay. Yeah, we're very active on our Discord on like a daily basis. And we have our website set up to do blogs. We're not really doing much of that. We more post updates on Steam. So yeah, you can buy the game on Steam. The game is on the eShop right now. You can pre-order it. It's on sale until launch day for 25% off. So you can get it at $15. And the price everywhere is going to raise to $20 on launch day. It's been $15. 5 years ago, we raised the price to 15 from 10. And then before that, 3 years before that, it was 7. So as we've continued to build upon more and more of the game and add more value to it, we've proportionally increased the price. So now's really the best time to get into Barony. You're going to get it for the low price, and you're going to immediately get hit with a massive update that where we increase the value of the game, and you don't have to pay for that. So that's good for you and your viewers.
Very awesome. Any other links you want to share or any other info you want to give us?
Here, let me. Should I just dump this in the in chat?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, that's a link to our Discord. Y'all can join up and yeah, keep it posted. Spread the word, man. These first couple months, it's so hard to get big gaming media to notice you. We haven't had a single person talk about Barony on any gaming website. Any of the places you go for game reviews they have a restraining order against Barony. They do not talk about us. So we're hopeful that with this big launch, we'll finally get a little bit of attention and become a little bit more mainstream. And then, hey, maybe then those console ports will be possible. But we'll see.
Well, in the meantime, fuck the other sites. They don't matter.
That's right.
Just us.
Just SML for life.
Well, I am down with the Barony at this point in
Well,
time.
at least for one
Thank
more
you for
week,
making-
because that's when we're going to review it.
Hey, just because time is precious doesn't mean I don't continue to like the games, even when I'm like, man, time would be great if I had it.
No, I meant that SML matters. SML matters for one more week because we haven't reviewed it yet.
Then once we review it, we're back on the shit list. We don't matter.
Yeah, exactly.
Come on,
man. Josiah, again, it has been a pleasure having you on. We'll have to get you back on again sometime in the future. Hopefully it won't be 3 years. But yeah, it's been a pleasure having you back. It is great to see the game on the cusp of release. We are going to move on with some reviews we got to take care of, and we are going to let you get going. Do you have any final words before you depart for the night?
No, thank you for the opportunity. It was great to spend time with all. You're a fun group. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for being here.
Great time.
Yeah, thanks.
Have a good one.
You too. Cheers. Bye.
All right. Joe stuff. We got more shit to do. You guys want to talk at all, or do you just want to like dive into reviews?
No. But we just lost the best person. He was great.
We did. He was. There's a reason I kickstarted the game. The chat was great. I threw some money towards the Switch release. I got my Switch version, and then my Switch broke, so I can't fucking play it.
Well, that's not his fault. That's Nintendo's fault.
I know. Like, what the?
Or one of your cats.
Hopefully a solution is had, and you figure out what was wrong.
It just won't start up. I've tried different outlets. I've tried. Like, is there a way to like hard reset the system? I should look.
I even say do something like
the power button
take the
for like
battery
10
up.
seconds.
Really.
Hold the power button for 10 seconds, hit up on the joystick 10 times, click the right stick a couple of times. I don't know, some bullshit like that.
Something like that, I'm pretty sure.
Probably. Good stuff.
You go.
Reviews. Should we dive into these? We only got a couple to talk about tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
I'm good for that.
All right. Well, first game to talk about tonight is Ed O Zombie Uprising, developed by Lancarse, published by D3 Publisher, released July 13th on Xbox Series X and S, PS5, and PC for $29.99. Odeo Zombie Roguelike, a roguelike action where traditional Japanese characters like samurai, sumo wrestler, and ninja destroy hordes of zombies. Since everything is randomly generated, no run will be the same. Decision making will be essential, but there are some RPG elements as well. Pernell, tell us about your time with Ed O or Ed Zero. I don't know how they want us to say this. It's clearly a zero, but I feel like it's Ed O.
Edo. I would like it's Edo, like as an Edo, but emphasis on the pause and saying "oh."
I figure there had to be like an emphasis on Ed. Like, is there a character named Ed in the game?
No, it probably is in Edo.
Yeah, like it's Edo, like the Edo period. But I think the emphasis is meant to be the O part. If they listen to this, they can tell us. But I'm confident it's the O.
I'm going to stay steadfast in my belief that it's about a character named Ed, a zombie named Ed, who is...
I've murdered a lot of zombies, and not a single one said, no, you killed Ed. So I think, so far, I'm on the right path here. But what you are doing in this game is... So just to clarify right off the gate, this is by D3 Publisher. So right off the cuff, this is the company that did games like Oni-chan Bara. So expect a game that is not leaning hard on technical features. You might be feeling like you're playing a PS3 or a PS2 game, and that's fine. That's what they do. But with that said, once you get that out the way, the question becomes, what's the gameplay like? And now I'll discuss the gameplay proper. In this game, you play as one of three characters, though unfortunately you have to unlock the other two characters. You start out with just one, a samurai character, and your goal is to run around this landscape through a narrative, which I didn't think about too much because I'm playing the game for the action. And you generally take on various missions from your hub world. And when you take on the missions, you go out into the field and fulfill them. This is a roguelike game, so missions consist of you going into different regions. You start out in what's called the outskirts, which is a little small zone where you might be able to pick up a few items just to get the ball rolling. But then afterwards, you will go through a gate and you'll proceed through various, floors that represent the location you're in. And your goal while in these environments is to find the new exit gate and go through it in order to proceed to the next floor until you eventually get to the bottom, defeat a boss, and call it a day. So, As you're progressing through a floor, you have a general aspect of an attack stat that you can use to determine how much power you've got, and then your base hit points and your hunger meter. Hit points obviously being how you take damage and you run out of hit points, you die. And your hunger meter is a ticking time bomb, kind of like what we were talking about from the interview we just had, where over time it decreases, and if it runs out, you'll start to lose health and then eventually die. You have to eat food in order to keep that gauge rolling. It's just like a way to keep you on your toes and not just kind of putzing around the levels. In a dungeon run, as you fight zombies, and there are a lot of zombies that you will fight, you don't actually level up. You don't get experience points for fighting. So instead, what this game does to make you incentivize you to explore floors and grow your character during a run is there are, I guess, essentially talismans that are on the ground, or like just special items you can pick up that will increase either your attack power, your fullness, or your hit points. And there's generally 3 or 4 per floor. You want to find as many of those as you can before moving on to the next level. You may not always want to do that, though, because every once in a while you might find yourself being fairly overwhelmed by monsters. But there are metrics they give you or elements you can get in the game to kind of help pacify that, make it a little easier on yourself. Your base attack is a combo strike of sword slices, which is kind of good to do some cheap, weak damage, but it keeps enemies at bay unless they do like one of those uncounterable attacks which you got to dodge out the way of. Which, by the way, you have a dodge roll too. You have a charge attack, which is sort of like your heavy, where you dash into a stab, and also if you hold it down, you'll do like a more powerful stab. And if you only rely on these attacks, even as you slowly increase your attack power from talisman pickups, you will slowly suffer because those attacks do piddling damage. The real damage in this game comes from secret arts, scrolls that you might find lying around on the maps. When you use them, of which each secret scroll art can contain one of a number of different actual abilities. You can use it to equip it to one of 4 button placements represented on your, basically the 4-button cross pad on the front of your controller. You hold down left bumper and press the corresponding button, boom, you do the move. But one thing that I like about what this game does is that if you find a scroll that is similar to one you've already equipped and you try to use it on that same slot, you will unlock an upgrade for that skill. It'll become you'll get a series of 3 different abilities that are randomized. It could be something like, more attacks pulled off from the attack move itself. You might get a cooldown reduction because when you use secret arts, they have a cooldown meter to them. You'll get or super armor is my favorite, where basically when you use it, you have an increased defense, so if enemies hit you in the middle of it, you might be able to just kind of tank it and keep going. So you'll be using these if you find them to kind of make their special moves stronger and help you out. And then those are the things you'll be primarily using to dish out the majority of your actual damage to enemies. You'll be fighting them. If you get killed in a dungeon run, or if you complete a dungeon run, you'll get kicked back out to the home base. And the home base has you use money that you've acquired from finding treasure and general kills, but also experience or orbs. I just call them blue orbs that you get from killing enemies. You can use those things to invest in upgrading your character for future runs. You can use the orbs on a tree that's in the village to upgrade, to unlock the ability to equip more, buffs. And I guess that's the point where I probably would backwards and explain that, because unlike a lot of games, the buffs that you can equip at this tree don't come from just leveling or getting more experience orbs or whatever in dungeon runs. Instead, they're tied to the achievements in the game. So you might find something that says run 500 steps over the course of time, or run for a total of 300 seconds in the game time. And if you do that, you'll get an achievement in the Xbox menu, but also you'll see that ability upgrade shows up in this tree that you can now equip. It might be something like, increase critical damage by 10%, or now healing in a dungeon might give you a little bit more health. And you'll be unlocking more slots to equip more of those at one time. And I honestly kind of like that system a lot, because it incentivizes you to scroll through and see what some of these your requirements are to make you attempt to do them to unlock these abilities that you can then in turn equip. Money is used at the dojo to upgrade your character too. You might be able to get things like additional vitality, so you'll start the levels with more hit points without needing the pills to do it. And that's what it was. It wasn't talisman, they were pills. You might also find yourself using it to, say, get additional items in the outskirts. So, you go into the level starting with a bit more things, items, And items can be the thing that saves your butt in this game, or more skills to start a run off with. So you have reasons to take your money and your basically your experience orbs back to the village, because while they don't level you up directly, they are used to level up assets in the town that makes it easier for you to do future runs. And one more thing that I should probably mention that I forgot to mention is that when you're in the dungeon and you're going from floor to floor, just like in typical roguelites, there are a variety of gates you can come across before going on the floor. So it's not just find the gate and exit. It's find one of many gates and choose the one you want and use that to progress to the next floor. Each of these gates has a variety of different effects. Like you might find a gate that takes you to a floor where you can pick one of 3 items that appears. You might find one that will let you heal your character a little bit, or one that contains a rice ball, so you can get some more food in your stomach because you've been suffering to get mum. You've been suffering on the hunger meter this whole freaking run. Happens to me way too damn often. So the interesting thing about this game is I did do a little bit of dabbling, in the sense that I did do some perusing online because I was curious about what other people thought of this game, and a lot of people didn't seem to like it. I have to say, for my time with this game, though, I didn't mind it at all. Like, at first I thought the issue was going to be that there wasn't enough variety in the zombies, because you do fight a lot of zombies. But they hit you with some unique ones here. There's like the giant zombies, the samurai zombies, the inflamed zombies, the stalker zombies. There's a lot of zombie types that get mixed in with the basic zombies. So it keeps you on your toes. And when you see a giant zombie, just freaking run.
Did you say they're unique?
No, I did not, actually. You were hearing things, Joe. I said, unique zombies. But yes, there is a variety of different monsters in the game. I will say the one complaint that I do have, aside, because again, one complaint being that I know this is a D3 game. I didn't expect PS5 or Xbox Series X graphics in this thing. But I wish you didn't have to unlock the other characters, because it would be nice if I could have chosen who I wanted to use and then get good with them, instead of being like, well, yeah, if I don't like this samurai, tough to bully because I'm stuck with this cat. But thankfully, I got used to the samurai pretty quickly. I like using Pommel Hit and Dogeza, which are basically 2 really powerful special skills, but they take a little bit of a second to wind up. Yeah, I found my way of getting around with this character, but I would like to use a faster character, one that's more in tune to like dancing around, which I assume the ninja is, and if I ever get to the ninja, I will know what it is.
Yeah. I've watched lots of stuff on it. Yeah, the ninja's very quick, very jumpy, very squishy though.
Did you play this one?
Maybe that's why they told them off.
No, I did not think this was safe enough for me to play. There's in the trailers there was an awful lot of flashing and stuff on the screen when you attack.
That makes sense, because some of the special skills trigger lights. You might get a talisman that lets you emit like electricity all around you and whatnot. Oh, and I didn't even mention, thank you for saying that. There's one other type of equipment you can get in this game that's very important to the dimension. And they are the actual charms. So you don't have armor in this game, but what you do have are passive buffs that can be equipped when you find them to give you a variety of different things. Some good, some bad, because again, being a roguelike, some of the things in this game suck and you don't want them equipped. You want to throw them at enemies and make them have to suffer the consequences. Like you might have a charm that makes it, easier to do more damage with critical strikes. You might find one that makes it so that if enemies are poisoned, you'll do more damage to them. The favorite thing I've come across so far is a charm where if you kill an enemy, they produce a spirit orb, and the spirit orb chases the nearest enemy and attacks them. And then if you kill that enemy, they then produce one, and so on and so forth. So you can generate tons of orbs that just chase enemies around. You can equip up to 10, and you can remove them whenever you want, unless it's a cursed charm, in which case you got to find an item that allows you to uncurse it and then remove it. So there's elements to that too. But to Aki's point, yeah, there are a lot of flashing lights in this game, sometimes from the abilities you use, and other times from items that generate. Like there's an item, like I said, that when you use it, it generates a ton of electricity around you. That can be pretty flashy. The blast orb, when it hits enemies, generates like a kind of a blue glow as it's bouncing off of everybody. So things like that I could totally see being like, well, if you're not good with flashy lights and colors, you might not want to mess around with this game. And of course, the Zen meter, when you trigger that thing, it just goes sparky blue, and suddenly you can't see anything. for a couple seconds. So, but I will say, I guess to wrap this up, because I've been talking way too long about this. I actually do think the game is fun. Like I said earlier, I do wish you could have had the characters unlocked from the start, but it does carry decent elements to the roguelike formula, but it's done in an action RPG style. So whereas action gameplay style. So whereas we've had the Barony game, which we'll talk about more next week, where it's more of it's actiony, but it's more methodical. And then you'll have like the Sheer in the Waters, where it's roguelike, but it's like tile by tile turn based. This one is straight up action packed. Like you're moving quickly, you're jumping, you're dodging, you're blocking. Well, you're not blocking, but you're moving around while also working with your inventory management and all the conventions that come with a general roguelike game. And I found it to be fun. So I think it's honestly going to go towards. Oh, and also I haven't experienced any glitches, believe it or not. So this is also glitch free as well for me.
That's
so I would give it a hot. Well, it is a positive. I'm just saying some people might go, well, duh, I had 5 glitches. Like, well, I'm not you. I didn't have any glitches. So
all right. Well, the game is clocking in at $30. What are your thoughts on it?
Honestly, price could be subjective, but I think honestly it's a buy it. I might be the one review on the internet that says that, but I think it's a buy it. I had fun with it. I can see it being something that more people enjoy. Just go into it knowing, again, it's only Chanbara or Earth Defense Force in like graphical quality, but there's a reason why people also like Oni Chanbara and Earth Defense Force, and there's that charm lies in this game too.
Cool, sounds good.
Yes.
All right, next up, Cross Tales, developed by Rideon, published by KEMCO, released July 20th on Xbox One, Series X and S, Switch, PS4, PS5, and PC for $29.99. What will the Tales witness after a crossing tale? A tactical RPG that portrays a fantasy story of a war between the canine and the feline tribes, playable from both points of view. Chris, what is going on in Cross Tales?
Well, let's get this out of the way right quick. They're fighting like cats and dogs.
Anyway.
Well, it's so that it doesn't come back up again. So, there we go. Okay, so Cross Tales is a game where you play... well, basically, you have your choice. You can be the doggy tribe, which is the kingdom of Ranverfurt, which is the doggy tribe. With its male protagonist Felix, or you can play the Republic of Hidik story, for which the main character is a female protagonist. This is the cat tribe, and her name is Shaima. Yeah, I wouldn't have remembered those names if I didn't have it right in front of me. Because it's one of those things where it's like the opening story starts, and it's just so many like nouns, and you're just sitting there trying to read them, and you're like, I'm not going to remember this later. You got to slow down. Just be like they're fighting like cats and dogs, and leave it at that. This is a fantasy strategy RPG in the very much in the tradition of a Final Fantasy Tactics kind of situation. In that it's not only dealing with with the heroes, villains, fantasy setting and stuff, but also like complex political situations and like, different things like that. So, you kind of get to learn about a few different characters. And it's just two races that have been at war. And there's kind of an event that happens in the game that really sparks off like a bad conflict. But as the story progresses, you start to realize that it's perhaps not the other person that is your enemy, but in fact a third party who may be another different kind of animal. Who knows? But it's one of those things where it's kind of like when I saw the previews of it, I was like, oh, this is just like going to be like a furry game or something like that. I've played a few of those now, but it's like they seriously do not ever refer to the fact that they have animal ears and tails and stuff. And I'm like, okay, definitely a furry game then, because that tends to be how that goes. But it's fine. Like I said, it's basically just to kind of illustrate that these folks are different, but not so different, right? It's just kind of how it goes. So yeah, that's the story part of it. Honestly, the story part is good. It's it's not like an epic tale to keep you, coming back for, I don't know, the next, it's so hard to like construct this sentence without spoiling like so many games. It's a good story. It's a good story. But what really shines in this game are the mechanics. It is a strategy RPG. That is to say, you do your battles by moving your characters around in a grid-based combat situation to try and maneuver around the map and get the best position and use your skills and weapons and stuff to attack the other enemy, heal yourself, use items, do other things to kind of gain advantage, stat boost, and everything like that. Now, this game is a little different than a lot of the ones I've played for review anyway, because the characters are actually really malleable. And this is, again, going to kind of harken to that Final Fantasy Tactics thing. You basically can have any character kind of doing anything that they've learned, but like things like your equipment will kind of determine what your stats are going to be. Every stat that raises something lowers something else. So there's very much like if you're going for high attack, then you're going to lose out on certain like defense attributes or maybe even magic. And and the opposite is true, of course, if you're equipping mostly magical things. And then there's basically the way it goes is that your characters can gain levels and frequently will. That will raise their survivability and overall stats. However, the way that you learn skills and the way that you kind of grow in the game is through money. So you want to make sure to have a lot of it at a time. You can dump money into a character and just if you had the money, you can max out a character. In terms of like the skills that they can learn, you can be doing pretty much end game stuff right at the beginning if you have the cash. However, you frequently won't. So because you've got a lot of soldiers, a lot of things, and you can certainly repeat. There's a system called free battles where you can basically, as you go through chapters, free battles get added to a list, and they're just battles in situations that you can kind of replay, but without any kind of story or anything. And at a similar difficulty that when you played it the first time, and then the first time around you'll get maybe a unique reward, but you'll always get something. So it's actually kind of cool to like stop and redo some battles and stuff. It's not like Final Fantasy Tactics where you have to walk around the map and then you might run into a battle every single time, or it might take like 10 different moves back and forth, and like you just watch the calendar go by while you're just trying to get attacked by some wolves. But anyways, so yeah, it's a much more complex system as far as like what all you can do. The stat screen is going to be very intimidating when you look at it the first time. There are so many stats. I'm not even going to go into what they do. But any RPG enjoyer of any experience is going to recognize at least enough of them to get by. Plus, the game has tutorials upon tutorials. This book has just tomes of like different things that you can read to get caught up with what every little thing does. So that saves me some time because I don't have to tell you what all that does. Let's just say the system was extremely thoroughly thought out. The folks definitely put a lot of effort into that, and there's a reason for that. Is because Rideon or Rideon, I don't actually know which one it is, Rideon Japan is actually responsible for a series of strategy RPGs that are very similar to this one, and that's the Mercenaries Saga Chronicles, which started off on the 3DS almost 10 years ago now. Well, no, I guess it was like 6 or 7 years ago, but no, I don't know, whatever. A long time ago. Back before any of us were even born. And on the 3DS, yeah, you had the Mercenary Saga. They re-released all of them on the Switch along with the 4th chapter. That's 4 full-size like strategy RPGs, and so they've been refining this system for a long time. This one uses a very similar system, again with incremental refinements that one would expect from a game such as this, but this game's a lot prettier. It's got kind of this cel-shaded look where all the characters do kind of look anime, but they've got these really wide, like, black strokes around the characters so that you can, really pick them apart in battle and such. every character has a portrait. They have different facial expressions, except for Felix's best friend, Wendell, who just looks like a sad doggy all the time for some reason. He's just always got this dour look on his face, and I don't know. I've been like, dude, just cheer up, dude. I mean, it's a war. There's atrocities and whatnot, but it's like, come on. He needs some more looks. But yeah, and there's other characters that join up with you, besides the soldiers that you can hire or, improve upon or whatever. And they all have, their own like art too, and it all looks really good. Music's good and everything. So, but really, yeah, what the drawing point is of this game is that it has a very deep, nicely complex like battle system. And if you want to ignore it, you could just crank it, just throw it on easy and just go in there and wail. It has up to maniac difficulty, so you can definitely get your challenge if you want it. But if you just want to like play the game and watch the story and not worry so much about those stat gains and like buying up all the best skills for like your characters and stuff, just put it on easy and you'll be fine. And you can change it dynamically throughout the game too, which is a plus. There's a lot of options in this game actually, so it's very nice.
Well, it is a $30 game, which is beefy for a KEMCO RPG. Is the content there to justify the price?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely didn't play all the way through this game, but if you think about it this way, I did start 2 games. There are 2 games in here. Depending on the characters that you play, you're going to go into totally different locales. You will end up in skirmishes with the other character in the other storyline, but it's kind of more of it's a little bit like, well, no, it wouldn't be like Star Ocean 2. It's kind of a thing of like these characters do cross their paths and such, but they are playing into completely different, things. So there's 2 stories to play through. That's already really good on content. I haven't beaten it myself, but looking ahead at it a little bit, it does look like there's plenty to do here. I would say, yeah, it's a buy it for that if you're a strategy RPG fan. I mean, that's, still half the price of, how much that Diofield Chronicles or Triangle Strategies were whenever they came out. So,
the funny thing is Diofield is $30 right now.
Well, yeah, right now. And in fact, go ahead and grab that then, because that's half off. But, it's beefy for a KEMCO RPG, but, we know KEMCO really is just the publisher. It's who's making the games. And Rideon does tend to focus a lot on the quality and in-depth systems. They did, Meridian Tavern Story and was that Blacksmith of the Sand Kingdom. That was that one. So, they're pretty good at making beefier games, and they do tend to be a little bit more expensive, except for the Mercenary Chronicles one, which is weirdly cheap. Those games are extremely inexpensive very frequently. But I'm going to go ahead and give it a buy it, because I do think there's a lot here to enjoy. And like I said, it's, strategy RPGs are very common on the Switch right now. But I mean, they actually do tend to be in the more expensive price point anyway. So I don't see anything to disqualify this one from being a little bit more expensive. So there you go. Cool.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Next game to talk about. Here's a rarity. I'm doing one. Operation Wolf Returns. First mission VR, developed by Virtuallyz Gaming, published by Microids. Released July 13th on PSVR 2, Steam VR, MetaQuest 2, and Pico 4 for $29.99. The iconic action rail shooter comes back to VR. Released back in 1987 in arcade, Operation Wolf Returns First Mission VR adopts the same DNA as in the original game with a design rehaul. Relive this great arcade classic through non-stop action. As you can tell, this is a VR on-rail shooter game. You pop the headset on, you're introduced with a main menu where you get to pick whether you want to do tutorial or not, or if you just want to dive into things. I just dove into the first mission. It auto-traveling down a corridor, enemies pop up, and you got to shoot them. You use your right controller, depending on if you have a one-handed or two-handed gun. If it's one-handed, you just point and shoot. Click, click, boom, take enemies out. You have an option on the left controller to turn on the crosshair or leave it off if you want a more realistic immersive experience. Fuck that. I want the reticle so I know where I'm aiming. Your health is handled as a watch on your left hand. So you have to look at your watch and see what your health is at. If you're getting low on health, the healing medkit button is on the left controller as well. If you're using a two-handed gun, you use basically like Rambo. You just hold the two controllers in gun-like formation and start cranking away at the enemies. It was really intuitive to play. It was really easy to just sit down or stand up in this case, because there are 360 degrees of action in this game. Meaning if you're shooting motherfuckers in front of you and you're getting hit by something, it's probably behind you. So turn around and shoot behind you. That's a pet peeve of mine with VR games. I would rather the action just be like 180 degrees in front of you, so there's no blind spots, but immersive. Enemies are going to come at you from all sides. The campaign isn't too long. I want to say there's like 6 or 7 missions, maybe 8. I can't remember the menu off the top of my head. You'll get through it in a few hours. It's all about replaying and trying to get through all the missions with as high a score as you can and as good a rating as you can. There is a survival mode where you just try to last as long as you can. I made it to like wave 55 and decided I was getting tired, and I just let myself die. To be fair, I was playing on easy, so it was pretty easy. The game it's easy to get into. My only real gripe with the price is that it is the price. It's a $30 game. I think I would have been more comfortable if this was a $20 game. I know that there is a physical version for $40, so I guess they got to keep things higher up to match the physical price. If this was a $20 game, I would say like right away jump in and buy it. At $30, I'm more on the try it side. I would have loved to see the original arcade game in there as well, but you just get like the new campaign and the new updated visuals. I've seen some people complain about the visuals. I didn't have a problem with the graphics. I thought it was smooth and crisp and everything looked good enough. Some of the hostages that you would save had a knack for running in front of where you're shooting. So that could be worked on. But for the most part, it's a fun, approachable VR game. I think if you have a PSVR 2, you might be starving for some content. It's been kind of dry season there for a little bit. Nothing really catching my eye, but this one looked really good, and it plays well. For, again, $30, I think it's a try it. If it comes down in price, I would pick it up. If there's ever any updates or DLC, I'll revisit it, but for now, it's just fun time killer. Any questions?
Test?
What was that?
Is there a test?
No.
I'm safe. I'm good.
Yeah. Next game to talk about is Chaos Galaxy, developed by Zhiyu. I hope I said that right. Published by eastasiasoft. Released July 13th on the Switch for $19.99. The great galactic empire, which has ruled the galaxy for 1,000 years, collapsed under the sudden impact of alien contact and fell into a civil war. Many heroes with their own motivations have since set out to conquer the 3,000 worlds of the galaxy. In the background of this chaos, a greater threat of annihilation lurks. Pernell, what is going on in Chaos Galaxy?
Way more than I could chew on myself. This game is deep in a way that I wasn't expecting it to be. Like, I was expecting, this game is like Dragon Force with mechs. But what it actually is Dragon Force with mechs with so much more crap. Not saying that in a derogatory way. I mean, literally, it's just a lot of stuff. So, out the offset of the game, you have to choose from one of 14 nations to control. And those nations each come with their own perks and detriments. They come with their own alliances that are already established with other, factions. They come with... Hello?
Yeah, we're here.
Okay, I just heard somebody go. I wasn't sure if that was me or not. But, yeah, you all come with their own different factions, their alliances, their enemies. their own types of units they can control or recruit their own unit generals. The works. It's just a lot of different perks and detriments. So you choose who you want based on who sounds cool and just play around with it. Now, the overall goal of the game is to pretty much conquer the solar system in this case, defeat your enemies or through diplomacy or through not necessarily. There's some diplomacy options here too. So either through diplomacy or through sheer violence. But you basically want to conquer the galaxy in this game. And you start off with a number of planets you already have under your control. You have some money, you have some morale, and you have some supply units. And already off the bat, you're hit with quite a few options for how you can go about progressing yourself. You can go about checking the units you already have set up on the map. They usually are docked at different planets. You can select one of them by selecting their fleet, and you can see what units you already have recruited to it. And if you want to add more, you can purchase additional units using your supply and your money to pad out your units. Units being used to get engaged in combat when the need arises to. Units themselves come with a variety of different concepts. They have their own weapons, different shielding types, and different abilities associated with them exclusively. So you will find yourself in situations where you're like, at least early on in the game, you're not going to have any freaking idea what you want to recruit or why. You'll pretty much have to learn as you go. But I will tell you right off the cuff, when you get into combat, don't just bank on ranges, because unlike a lot of games I've played like this, I was having a lot of unreliable shots going on. Like, you're not guaranteed, you're not more likely to hit than miss, in my opinion. I feel like you're more inclined to miss than hit. So don't expect to just get like a fleet of ranged units and just decimate the army, because that's not going to freaking happen. But you can basically recruit units to an army up to a certain limit, because they have what's called a lead stat. And that determines how many units you can have equipped, because each unit has its own, I guess, like volume of how much space they take up in your army. And once you meet that total cap, you can't recruit any more units. You can actually submit to have leaders of your army manage the planets themselves to boost their output, because after each month of gameplay, 1 month being a turn basically, you have to go through a period where you have to accrue new resources based on the planets you control, and you have to spend for upkeep of units you've already purchased, and also anything that you're owing money for going down the line. So you have to keep income up and I guess costs down. So each planet generates its own resources for you, and you can use those generals that you can equip this. You can submit to manage these planets to produce more in different categories depending on the command that you submit there. You have access to a policy table. Policy is basically a tech tree, which is different for every different faction. You can spend money to upgrade different things, such as, for example, my favorite thing was one for my unit called Queen Majesty, where you pretty much can increase damage of all the unit factions by 5%. It's an early one you can get, but it's also the one I kind of wanted to invest in immediately, because okay, if I want to get engaged in combat, I want to have a bit of an edge. But it costs money, and then you have to spend a number of monthly periods to go buy in order to actively make it complete, and then you can move on to initiate another policy if you can afford to do so. You can actually have conversations with the different other countries. If you have alliances with them, you can go to them and request assistance in the form of unit support or financial support. Or you can outright straight up say, I want to engage in war. Go attack another country on my behalf. And if they have enough of a, moral relationship with your country, they might just do that. They might support you in a war. Enemy factions might actually use diplomacy to come directly after you, because it goes both ways. They actively have their own individual turns each month where they will also engage in these things. Those all behind the scenes unless you're directly impacted by it. But they go through all these processes themselves. There's a lot to think about with all this kind of stuff. There's a lot to consider. There's a lot to manage. I honestly don't even understand all of it myself. I'm getting the crap kicked out of me in this game. I'm fine with it. I wasn't expecting this coming in. But I do know that this game, for the price they're charging for it, offers a good amount of content and gameplay experience. And also worth mentioning, the combat itself, you don't even have to engage in it technically if you don't want to. And what I mean by that is you're going to battle, but there's actually an auto battle feature. Whether that's successful or not, I have no freaking idea, because the battles themselves are actually engaged. It's not like you have a unit meet up with each other and go combat and they just roll a die and you win. If you choose the manual combat, it goes to an actual like turn-based strategy game, kind of like a I hate to say it, but it makes sense, like an Advance Wars or a Fire Emblem, where the units you purchase are out in space. The units that are in the enemy's unit are also out in space. There's a fog of war mechanic where you have to go out to a certain distance to find units. There are actually submarine units that can somehow submerge in space. I don't know how that happens, but whatever. I'm calling it submerged because they're actually called submarines. There you go. But they can hide themselves in space. And if you don't have a means of uncloaking them using radar, they can sneak up on you and do damage. But there's a full-on combat system in place here if you decide to do the battles manually. Up to and including your general or leader of your unit having a special ability that can be triggered by destroying enough enemy units or doing enough damage to them. And there's even a morale system in the battle where if you defeat the enemy leader, the morale drops on the units that remain, and they could potentially flee battle entirely, thereby giving up the ghosts on that that area they were trying to protect. Your units do eventually come back, but early on, that's kind of a bit of a disadvantage because it's upkeep costs, in addition to the fact that you just flat out don't have those units on the map for a time being. So, kind of like, this is basically more complicated than Brigandine, which was the last game like this I played. But I do feel as though this game is awesome in a way that it adds more than I was expecting to get coming in. I would say the one main detriment that I can point out right off the cuff, though, for I don't know, it might be even an option in the options menu that can help alleviate this a little bit. But the way you move around the map and manipulate the menu, it's kind of like it was on PC, where the left thumbstick works like a mouse, where you actually drag a cursor around. If you use the right thumbstick, rather than scroll the map as a whole, it literally just clicks. Like, it zooms in and out. So you're pretty much stuck dealing with the slow pacing of the cursor itself. Like, you can't even drag the screen around if you wanted to. So what ends up happening is you find yourself dragging it around to get to the thing you want. Then at least you can use the touch screen to tap on stuff to review it too. But if it's not on the actual screen itself to tap it, you got to scroll over until it shows up. So you might find yourself having moments you're like, oh man, I wish I could just, I don't know, do a thing where I could just like quick pan over or something like that. But for the most part, that can be annoying. I don't see myself playing this game on the television. I normally play games in handheld mode almost exclusively on the Switch. But this is one of those cases where I'm not sure I'd even want to play this on the TV. Though, because you might say, well, yeah, Pernell, but you can use the Joy-Cons on TV. Yeah, but you could, but you can't tap the TV, at least to my knowledge. Maybe you can use the Joy-Cons infrared to do it, but you can't tap your TV, which means that shortcut to get the different buttons on the menu to hit hit selections would be lost to you on your television set. Unless they have like an update that says, hey, we're going to make it so that you can do that. Man, if you can figure that out, guys, go for it. With that said, I've been rambling long enough. I feel like this game is fun, but it does, even with a tutorial option at the beginning of the game in a beginner mode, it has a high learning curve. Like, you're going to have to sit down and get used to the mechanics this game has. You're going to have to get used to the fact that, hell, I still haven't quite figured it out. I don't even know what benefits a person gives to governing their planet until they actually govern the planet. Like, I don't see in the menus where it tells me if I put this person here, they're good with trade, so they're going to increase my trade output by 5. Like, I don't freaking know. So with that said, I'm saying that there's a lot to learn here. There's a lot to get used to. Don't just expect to pick this game up and run with it. You're going to pick it up, get settled into this world, and then find yourself going, I think this game is really awesome. But if you're the type that just wants to pick up a game and just play it and have fun for a bit and put it down, this is not the game for you. It's a meaty game that takes time to get used to and acclimated with it. But if you have that time, you're in for a good time. This is a solid product.
Well, it's $20. What is your verdict on this game that uses unique twice on the store page? Once that says you can choose from more than a dozen unique factions.
Unique.
And the other that says meet, manage, and manipulate over 60 unique commanders.
Unique.
Pernell, $20. What do you say?
Well, it's an easy buy. Easy buy. As long as you meet the needs that I mentioned earlier, this is an easy buy. You'll find lots of fun to have here. frustration too, but fun.
Cool. All right, next up is Potata, Fairy Flower, developed by Potata Company, published by Sometimes You. This one will be out August 2nd on Series X and S and PS5 for $14.99. This adventure platformer tells a story of a young witch exploring fairy forests to find herself and save her home. Join her quest now. Immerse yourself in a picture-perfect fantasy, solve numerous puzzles, fight enemies, reveal all the secrets, and don't forget to save the world. Aki, did you save the world?
Yes, on my first choice.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so in this you play a well, they call themselves a mage. They're more like a little barbarian, who, you know, I assume probably in middle school or something. And she doesn't study to be a mage like everyone else in the village because she's lazier than shit. Instead, she just wants to go around and explore and adventure and just have fun, you know, standard kid stuff. And, yeah, she happens to destroy this flower that she shouldn't have destroyed. And now she has to go collect all the different petals for the flower, or else the forest might be doomed, which includes her people's little village in this forest. And yeah, from then, it's all about just platforming and trying not to die continuously. The platforming isn't, you know, precision or anything, thank God. So it seems to be targeting like a children age, like young kids. However, there are a lot of sections that are timed where you're trying to outrun basically something that will instantly kill you. And all of them are incredibly, incredibly tight. So I'm like, most of this game seems to be built for children. And then there's this bullshit. Because I don't know how many times this bullshit killed me. Yeah, I spent over an hour and a half just reloading one section, just trying to get through it. And, you know, I was doing that for at least an hour and a half, maybe even two, last night. And then this morning I tried it again and I was like, and I finally got it. And I was so fucking happy. That I spent like 30-ish minutes on another one. So yeah, throughout that, other than that, you're just, you know, you occasionally have some little puzzles to solve, which are, light up puzzles. You know, there used to be an old toy that did this, but ain't no one gonna know what the fuck that toy was anymore. Basically, if you click a button, you light up this four cardinal squares around it. And in the puzzle, you have to light up specific squares and keep the rest of them unlit up. And there's a handful of those. There's also some where you're given basically Tetris blocks that you have to place around on this puzzle to cover all of the spaces on it. And those are the two different types of puzzles you have in the game. Most of the rest of it is just platforming, picking stuff up, and using it in the only location you can. For the platforming, it's not just, oh, let me jump around. There's also things like spike balls that shoot around occasionally in different areas that if you touch, you lose a heart. You start off with 3. I think by the end, if you buy the upgrades, I think you can have 5 or 6. There are some instant death, much larger spikes. You'll notice they're slightly different color of red. Later on, there's also things like poison spikes that when you get close to them, they're basically a poison proximity mine. So they'll start quickly flashing and you have to get away before they explode and hurt you. So on and so forth. There's also some, I call them boss battles, but they're most of the time they're really just you dodging attacks until the boss is like, okay, I'm done. Because they just can't kill you, so fuck it, I'm tired now. You are given a little wooden sword to whack the very rare set of enemies and kill them. There are also, spiders occasionally show up in some levels that drop down and you can hit them and they'll get out your way so you don't lose health. Things like that. if you die, you go back to a checkpoint. And the checkpoints are only used once. After that, you basically use the in-game currency to pay to reset the checkpoint, more or less. So that's fun. And there's only a certain amount of that money in the game, period. So it would be difficult for you to run that money out, but it is theoretically possible. So there's something to be worried about, I guess. Otherwise, it's just a cute, brightly colored game.
Cool. It's $15. What do you think?
I think most kids are going to like this, but they are going to need an adult's help probably for the timed sections, because those are really tight and they're a real big bitch. Otherwise, yeah, this is very much for kids. And yeah, I totally suggest it. I think it's real fun.
Cool. And if you are a bargain hunter and you already own the game on Xbox One or PS4, I believe you have until launch day to save 50% on the Series X or PS5 version. Because it's sometimes you and they like doing those discounts when you have one version and buy another. I wish more companies did that, where if they release multiple versions, you can get a discount, whether timed or permanent, whatever. At least it's an effort. So...
Yeah, not everyone can be as awesome. It's just, that's part of life.
I picked it up for $7.50. I'll just say that. So fuck it. Next up, Heavenly Bodies, developed and published by 2 Point Interactive, released in December 21 for PS4, PS5, and PC for $19.99. It has some brand new cleanup DLC releasing later this week. Not sure what the cost is on that. I was hoping to have the info by now, but don't have it yet. Probably have that info next week, but discover the ever-changing nuances of weightless motion in this challenging physics game. Wrangle control of your cosmonaut's arms with the left and right thumbsticks to push, pull, and clamber through fully physically simulated scenarios aboard a scientific research station. Pernell, tell us about your time with Heavenly Bodies.
The Space Co-op.
Yay, it's $20. What do you think?
So yeah, but it is Space Co-op. For those who don't know what Co-op was, it was a game where rather than control the actual character's movement, you controlled appendages on the character using different button inputs. In the case of this game, you are in control of the left and right arms, their ability to grab things, and the ability to not move, but tuck in and extend your legs. So it gets a little complicated in that sense. It sounds simple on the surface, but to put into perspective, it took me 45 minutes to beat the second level. They have a clear time recommendation of 10 minutes. God damn this game. So the game takes place in space. You're on a space station, and you're being tasked with fulfilling a variety of different, requests to repair the space station. They might say, reactivate the communications tower by tilting a series of radars, and then that in itself becomes extremely complicated because you have to get to the radar. You have to get outside. You have to tilt the radar. Sometimes you have to connect cables to different ports, which means you're floating through space by pulling yourself around. For a while, I thought you had to actually borderline flap your arms like a bird or like grab the walls and then like kind of shimmy around like a monkey, which in and of itself will be really hard. But thankfully, though not thankfully enough, you can kind of swim through space if you're going in a straight line. Like if you're going upwards, you can just push both thumbsticks up, which in turn will make your arms extend outward and you'll kind of just swim forward. But the moment you have to do anything dexterous, forget it, because you're going to suffer. And it's by design of the game. It's meant to be wacky and bizarre. But you might have to, say, for example, grab a cord, maneuver it down to an outlet, and then plug it in so that you can power another section of the tower. Well, sounds simple until you start spinning in a circle because you can't quite get your placement right. Now, I'm not saying I was completely incapable of playing this game because, like I said, I beat a few stages, but it took me way longer than the game suggested to do so. I think I just need to get better at the game, getting used to the controls and whatnot. I don't know. But what I will say is I was having frustrating fun, I guess, because
it's one of those games. If you know what kind of game you're getting into, you know what you're getting into.
And I can tell you that if I weren't having at least some level of fun, I would have stopped way earlier than I did. And the only reason I stopped was because, like, if I try to do the next level, it's going to take me at least an hour, and it's 2:30 in the morning. I go to bed. But I do enjoy the idea of being like, I'm almost there, almost. God damn it, I didn't get it. Like, there's something enjoyable about actively yelling at your TV. Like, what the hell is wrong with you? Turn the other way. Not your right, my right. And you're kind of making the guy do it. And like, I still haven't gotten quite the hang of, like, say, for example, you plug in something incorrectly. You need to unplug it. Well, you would think naturally just grab it with the grab button by holding in the trigger while you have the arm up near the cord, and then pull your arm down by pulling the cord down or pulling the thumbstick down. But I have moments where it just doesn't work. I'm like, okay, take the cord out. So eventually I just snap and like flick the controller a while, like just pull the damn thing out. And you just see this spaceman having a seizure on the screen, just kind of yank. I'm like, eventually it's going to come out. I know it is. And then there it goes. But I feel like the idea that this has a co-op mode in it, I could never play this co-op. I would hate the other person and they would hate me, and we would just hate each other lovingly in that special hateful way, because the idea of trying to get these controls right with another human being, I couldn't do it. I feel like it's not meant to be done. It would separate separate married couples. It would. I know it would.
I'll have to stay away from this with Ashley then.
Yeah,
but, the store page. The store page shows it has 4 player options.
Like, as in 4 people at once?
Yeah, can you imagine this with 4 people at once?
Step aside, Monopoly. There's a new contender for family ruining games. It is Heavenly Bodies.
Man.
But
that and Dokapon Kingdom in the same room will start a fire.
Oh god!
Rub 2 sticks together, bam, got him. But yeah,
well,
but I will say, okay.
I was gonna say this one's clocking in at $20. DLC is coming out this week called Cleanup DLC. Hopefully we'll be able to talk about that one next week, possibly, or the week after. I don't know. We'll find out. We'll see what happens. But the game itself for $20. What are your thoughts on it?
This is definitely another try. I can't give this a buy because there's so many stipulations that could determine if this is fun or not. But I do think that they did a great job with what they produce and what they intended to produce. There is a genuine sense of accomplishment when you beat a level, like not just moving on, more like a God damn it, I'm finally done. Darn it. Like that kind of accomplishment. And that doesn't come from a lot of games. It really doesn't, believe it or not. So I think this game is solid, but it's gotta be your game. You can't just take my word for it with a buy if I said that and I'm gonna cut Pernell. Me and my wife broke up because of him. That stupid game. So
damn it, Pernell.
You ruined her.
All right, well, that is it for you two guys. We pre-recorded something with Stemage, and we're gonna play that. I'm not even gonna try fucking hiding it.
Well, I want to know what the game is at least, since I'm not going to be, since we're leaving for the time being. What's the game?
He's gonna talk about Mr. Run and Jump.
Ooh, I'm curious about that, so I'll listen to that episode when it comes up.
Well, then you can just listen to it right now.
Ooh.
All right, and finally tonight we are bringing in our good friend Grant Henry once again. Grant, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm running and gunning, running and jumping.
You're on vacation right now, aren't you?
Yes, I am. Well, and when people are hearing this, I am. But right now I'm here.
Yeah, you are.
Yes,
how are you doing?
I mean I'm here right now on vacation, live.
Live.
How's
vacation? How's it going? What are you doing?
Oh, it's great. I found $5.
Nice.
I guess. Yeah.
Where are you vacationing?
Going to see family in Florida. I'm in Florida.
So sorry.
Seeing family. I'm seeing family at this moment.
Present
hey, Mom.
in Florida.
What's up? What's up, Mom?
You're in Florida. I am so sorry.
Mom said, "Fuck you, Joe." Why would she say that?
What the hell?
What's that about? What is that about? Mom!
Your dad likes me. I've met your dad before.
Calm down. She's cut off.
He's drunk again.
Good grief.
So you got a game to talk about. You ready for this?
Let's do it.
All right, final game to talk about tonight is called Mr. Run and Jump, developed by Graphite Lab, published by Atari, released July 25th on Xbox One, Series X and S, Switch, PS4, PS5, Steam, Epic, and Atari VCS for $24.99. And this eclectic 2D platformer helped Mr. Run and Jump defeat the terrifying void by collecting all of the power gems from the realms of color, joined by his trusty pal Leap the dog. The duo must venture through a dazzling and dangerous world, dodging countless enemies and conquering hundreds of fierce platforming challenges to save the day. Grant, what is going on in Mr. Run and Jump?
Well, you like running and jumping?
Yeah.
Yeah, y'all. You like misters? You like males?
Yes.
That's
Yes.
debatable.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, totally. Yes, this game is a precision platformer by Atari. It's in that Meat Boy fam, right? It's that kind of like slightly heavier gravity than the normal, a lot of snappy gameplay. It's a good time.
It's gonna hurt my feelings.
We'll find out. It's cool. There's two versions of this game. There's the one we're talking about. Did you know they're also putting a 2600 version of this game out?
Really?
There's a 2600 cartridge that they're putting out for this game with a 2600 version of this game, which is pretty awesome.
I love when they do weird shit like that.
Yeah.
That's always
I know.
really cool.
I know. I think they say it's the first 2600 game to come out, new retail 2600 game to come out since 1990, I think.
Jeez.
So yeah, you can get this on the fancy ass platforms, or if you got the old wood grain 2600 in the closet and you want to pull it out and play it there, I guess you can. It looks a bit different, but some of the stuff they do in this game, I don't know if would work, but in the 2600 version, but I like it. The modern game, the one we're talking about, it's very cool. Lots of glowy edges, very neon aesthetic, very bloomy. It reminds me a bit of Octahedron from a few years ago, which I really, really like. It is a running, jumping game. There are lots of ways to maneuver. You can do a long jump, you can roll, you can do sort of a standing still, sort of rocket high jump, you can double jump, you can dash. So they pretty much give you everything you might need to traverse these incredibly difficult stages. Not an easy game. There are 29 levels total, but the levels are surprisingly long. So they aren't quick, short feats. So I don't think that's a concern. And the worlds are split up into colors. So there's like the blue world and the red world. And let me tell you, when you go into a new world, it's pretty awesome. Like the game is sort of glowing at you, and so seeing a nice color change like that is very satisfying. This game is hard as nails. It's very hard. It's about survival, but it's also about collecting these gems throughout levels. And they're not, you can play this game probably a number of ways. I think that they have built this game where if you just want to play the level, avoid enemies, and get to the end to see your way through the game, it's not too bad. If you're wanting to collect all of the gems, it's a whole lot tougher. And there are sort of alternate paths you can go to for sort of like larger scale collectibles in the game as well. It's a lot of fun. I would say that I went in the first world, I went for 100%. I was like, I'm going to get these gems. And then that changed. At a certain point, I just was trying to survive. This game's quite tough. I think it's the kind of thing where you know what you're getting into when you get into this game. Lots of restarts. Restarts are very fast, right? It's very Meat Boy in that way. So you're not going to have to be waiting around a long time. There are lots of, not a ton, but several really forgiving accessibility options. So you can turn on checkpoints that will essentially throw you a checkpoint if you die more than, I think, twice in a certain section, and they're very forgiving. And then you can even turn it on so if you end up in a spot where you are just not making any progress at all, it will straight up throw you an invincibility star, so you can just sort of blaze through at least the section that you're stuck at. So they know that, like, ain't nobody got time for another Meat Boy, right? You don't want to bang your head on a level for however many hours, and sometimes you just want to see your way through and decide if you want to go back and do that. So it's nice that they have that in there. I think that's very friendly. The music and sound in this game is sick. It sounds awesome. All of the fanfares and blips and the music is just fantastic. it's just a joy to play for that reason. I had this thing turned up nice and loud, so definitely an upper in that regard. But yeah, there's not much else to say. It is a precision platformer that is 29 levels long. There are a couple twists in the game that I won't speak about, but nothing that I think adds a lot of additional playability. It really just depends on if you're into this kind of game or not. I feel like it's a little pricey. I feel like 25 is a bit high for the size game this is. I would have been happier with maybe a 15 or 20 for this. But if you're okay with repetition and sort of, well, I won't say repetition, but just like, banging your head against platforming challenges, and you're on a TV or a monitor that has a really good refresh rate, I think you're going to be really happy with this game. It's super tight, plays really well. It's just a matter of whether, I don't know if there's going to be a demo out or anything, but I think a lot of it just depends on where do you sit with precision platformers. Because this is definitely it's one that you can make it through, or it's one you could really spend some time on to 100%. So, but it's a good game. I really like it.
Well, at $25, what is your official verdict on this one?
I think if you are a fan of precision platformers, this is a great one. I think if you don't normally go for platformers, maybe I don't know, if there's not a demo available, I would say do some reading and see if it's maybe something you'd want to dive into. But if you're looking to play a tight platformer, it's a pretty good one.
Cool. As far as I could see, there is no demo available. Maybe post-launch we'll see one pop up. But yeah, if you want to learn more about the game, stay tuned to the SML podcast, because next episode we're going to have Graphite Lab on chatting with us.
Woo! That's awesome.
Yeah.
Sorry I can't be there.
It's okay. You're here for this.
That's right.
Taking time off your vacation for us.
Doing the work.
We'll forgive you this time, but just this time.
Are you yelling at your mom again?
Yeah, she needs to chill out.
Is she drunk?
Yeah. No. I don't know what's going on. I have no idea.
Oh man, well Grant, thank you as always for coming on and hanging out with us. I want to give a big thanks to the PartyCast crew for coming on, doing their reviews. Aki, thanks for hanging out for the whole thing. Big thanks to Josiah for coming on from Turning Wheel, talking about Barony with us. Again, that launches August 1st on the Switch. I hope I have that date right. But yeah, it's coming out soon. It looks good, plays good, and have fun with that. Grant, where can people keep up to date with you and what you're doing?
By Twitter. We just announced we're doing some work with Choice Provisions, the Bit Trip crew, and we just announced our new game. We're doing sort of a reimagining of the original Bit Trip runner with the edges rounded off, and I did a bunch of cool remixes of Matt Harwood's soundtrack for that. And there's a Chicken trailer is going up next week or this week. This week? What should I say?
Next
week.
2
weeks? It's out
sometime.
Yes.
Yesterday.
But yeah, you can check out, read more about it on the Choice, on the Totally Choice Twitter. And I'm really excited about that thing. It plays tight, and we built a runner maker into it, so you can actually build your own runner levels. So we're really excited about that.
Is it hitting everything, or is this going to be a Choice thing and they're only doing Switch?
I just know we're doing PC at first. That's all.
Well, tell them to bring it to Xbox.
All right.
Yeah.
I would love that.
You're an Xbox guy now too, Grant.
I am.
So you got to
I would love that.
You got to put your fist down and be like, listen, guys.
One of us.
No, I am. I just got to convince them. So, hey, I'm on it.
Cool.
I'm on a mission. So,
cool.
yeah.
Well, that is it for this episode. Again, thanks to everyone. Grant, do you have any final words before we play? Let's say we do your song with Alexander Brandon that we talked about last episode. We played Tyrion last episode, so we'll play Omegaforce this episode. How's that sound?
Right on. That's great. I got my guitar back with the whammy bar on it, and he let me do a bunch of 80s
nice
noises. So,
and anything we should know about the song before we lead into it?
Title track. That album, he put that album together with all of his guitar friends. He's not as big of a guitar guy, and he wanted to pull in his guitar buddies, and so he sort of picked the songs he felt fit each guitar player, and Omegaforce was mine. So
cool.
There you go.
You have any final words to end the show?
Later.
Bye.
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 Fuck you, Joe.
Bye.